at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel. Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I
feel. Welcome back to the Resident Evil series with Resident Evil Apocalypse. The first film had barely anything to do with the games, but this film starts introducing characters from the games, which is kinda pointless because they all have to take a backseat to Alice and her ridiculous storyline, which will only get more prominent and ridiculous as we continue. So let's take a look at Resident Evil Apocalypse. The film opens much like the last one, with some opening narration recapping the previous movie as told by Alice. We start proper with a weather report saying there's currently a 92-degree heatwave occurring in Raccoon City. And then in the suburbs we see it's actually quite a nice day, with no one really wearing clothes applicable to a heatwave. I don't know, maybe they're heat-resistant denim jeans. Honestly, the heatwave thing is there literally for the express purpose of giving a reason for Jill Valentine, who we'll see in a bit, to wear the quite ridiculously skimpy outfit that she does for this, taken directly from Resident Evil 3. I think if you need to justify a character's clothing to this kind of degree, maybe they shouldn't be wearing it. Meanwhile, under the streets of Raccoon City, dumbass Umbrella is reopening the Hive to find out what happened, because they'd rather risk many more lives and experiment on Alice rather than just asking her a few fucking questions. The doors open and everything seems quiet. That is until T-virus levels increase rapidly and kill the entire team instantly. Seriously, what the fuck did you think would happen? They're Umbrella scientists, so it's not like they're unaware of the sheer amount of biological weapons in that place. Sealing the Hive was a last resort for a reason. And why am I the one telling them this? They're fucking idiots! Back in the city, Umbrella's ominous black trucks speed through the streets, and they start evacuating important people to Umbrella, because of their fuck everyone else mentality. They show up at Dr. Ashford's residence, the Ashfords being quite horrible assholes in the games, but here he's a benevolent good guy, so that's consistent. And he needs to get his daughter from school, but they'd already taken care of that, escorting her out. But on its way out of the city, Ashford's daughter's truck is taken out by a speeding semi, leaving her alive but alone on the streets. We then shift 13 hours later as high-heeled Jill Valentine hears the chaos on the police scanner and sees zombies ravaging the streets on the news. Jill goes to the police station that already has many zombies inside, and she just walks in shooting all the zombies, even freeing this guy for later comic relief. So basically what they're saying is, Jill Valentine is the only smart person on that police force. Because seriously, no one thought that maybe keeping zombies around to bite you was a bad idea, and that they should be shot on sight? Furthermore, Jill got her experience with dealing with zombies from the events of the first game, which didn't occur in this universe. And the only evidence that she's actually dealt with zombies before was some newspaper clippings. Which is just the epitome of shoving in this character because they can, not because they should. Moving on, we then get a scene from the end of the last movie redone again. See, exactly like it was. But they've got to give some token time to other characters before the movie goes Alice mad. So the city is being evacuated and the entire city has been walled off on all sides in 12 hours. That's ludicrous. Firstly, because it's impossible, but secondly, somehow they managed to do it without a single person noticing and leaving beforehand. It's just stupid, and a lazy way to keep our main characters in the city. Meanwhile, in the city, a woman is running upstairs away from a horde of zombies. She even loses the heel of her shoe, so we really understand she's a damsel in distress. She gets the roof door open with the keypad, but that causes her to be bitten on the arm in the process. And above the building, mercenary Carlos Oliveira sees the woman running and tells the pilot to land, but he won't due to orders. But Carlos says to hell with orders and does a Mission Impossible rappel onto the roof, shooting all the zombies, so we know he's another benevolent good guy. He gets to the woman, but she knows bite means death and jumps off the roof. I'm glad they bothered. I completely forgot that Oded Fehr was in this series. That's a good link coming fresh off the Mummy series. And I should say, I won't be criticising his badass status, seeing as how he was trained by the Israeli army. But it is kind of weird how he has the Hispanic name of Carlos Oliveira, and yet has a very obvious and pronounced Israeli accent. Back at the gate to the city, Jill arrives and meets up with another STARS member, Peyton, to try and help the evacuation effort. But that's when someone collapses dead, turning into a zombie to bite Peyton and for Jill to kill it. And because someone was infected, they decide to close the gates and tell everyone to piss off and go home, even resorting to firing at the crowd to get them to leave. Well, that escalated quickly. And is Umbrella completely incapable of killing anything but normal people? They have all the guns, all the soldiers, all the measures to continue evacuation, but no. One zombie makes them run with their tails between their legs. They can make them, but they can't kill them. The zombies roam the streets of the city, and the film uses this weird jittery camera effect, and I'm not too sure what the point of it is. It doesn't really make them more threatening, just more difficult to see. And the mercenaries are shooting up the streets with the rest of the police force, probably just to stop that annoying effect. The Umbrella guy calls his bosses and say the infection is spreading faster than they anticipated, which is great to know considering they made the fucking thing. And he tells Dr. Ashford that even though his daughter is alive, he couldn't let her out because there's the risk of infection. So again, they have numerous amounts of scanning equipment, weapons, soldiers, and the fucking antivirus, but they can't do anything to save anybody, let alone the girl. They're such over-the-top, suited, I-don't-give-a-shit businessmen, evil corporate bad guys, it's ridiculous. But Ashford decides to take matters into his own hands, and accessing his computer, he uses the city's surveillance cameras to start to search for his daughter, and then people who can help him get her back. And he spots Alice wandering the streets. Alice goes into an army surplus store to get guns and equipment, and they apparently supply pink camisoles too for some reason. She falls to the ground in pain and her arm looks to be mutating, and Alice remembers that when in the lab she was injected with the T-virus for what reason we don't know yet, but I'm sure it's fucking stupid. Jill's group has made it in a church for refuge, and inside they find a really jumpy guy who tells them to get out, threatening them and pointing a gun at them. So he's definitely the kind of arsehole to die first. Everyone is relaxing with the weather girl from the start using a handheld camera to record what's going on, asking questions of Jill and Peyton. They hear doors being opened and Jill goes to investigate. And Sienna Gilroy, for portraying Jill Valentine, made sure and imitated the way she moved. But I don't know, I'm not convinced. She's just not jerky and tank-like enough for me. She goes into one of the church rooms, finding a woman sitting in front of the fire. However, seeing blood on the wall, she knows something's wrong. And then the priest appears to try and get rid of Jill, as she sees the woman is a zombie, and the priest has been feeding her people. But the zombie breaks free and just bites the guy, causing the reporter to try and run out of the church, seemingly completely forgetting about the city full of zombies waiting outside. The thing with the priest is very much the film trying to do what Romero did and be realistic in how people react to the zombies. You know, keeping them alive, feeding them, treating them as just sick, that sort of thing. But it's one moment. It's a token effort to give this film some kind of social commentary. And this really isn't the kind of film you want to be thinking about too hard. And once the door is secure, it's time for the lickers to show up, as they sneak around the roof of the church, and the arsehole guy runs and is immediately picked off like I said he would be. Jill makes her way back to where the guy was taken, finding his gun, and then him as he drops from the roof. So shouldn't that licker now mutate like the other one did? It was never stated that the one in the first film was unique or anything. But I guess these lickers aren't meant to pose any kind of serious threat. They're just there to make Alice look like a badass, so they can't make them too powerful. And before Jill and Peyton can be effective to the situation at all, our superhero shows up through the window on a fucking motorcycle no less, as she drives the motorcycle into the liquor and then shooting the gas tank so it explodes in a very this only happens in movies kind of way. She takes out the other two, trapping one under a cross, shooting the other one, then killing the trapped one with a shotgun blast to the head.
Who the fuck are you?
Jill saying what all fans of the game have been saying this whole time. Then it's time for the comic relief to enter the movie proper, as he drives around the streets taking out zombies as he does. But he gets distracted by zombie tits and crashes the fucking car like an idiot, and has to walk. Cause this film has too many characters, we then shift back to the mercenaries shooting up the streets. One of them gets trapped beneath the door and then bitten, but Carlos takes it out with a knife, A grenade takes out the rest of them.
You okay? Yeah.
Fun fact, that zombie was Ben Moody, the former co-founder and lead guitarist of Evanescence, one of my favourite bands. No idea why he was there, but it's interesting. The police are overrun and the mercs have to pull back, with a shot recreating the opening to Resident Evil 3 with the zombie reflected in the helmet. Back with Alice and Jill's group, they decide to leave the church and walk through the graveyard. Peyton has to sit because of his leg, so Alice threatens to kill him because he's infected, and Jill points a gun at her, refusing to let Alice kill him, saying she'll do it herself. It's then the graves around them start popping open with zombies, and everyone except the reporter kicking ass. And they look rather rotted, don't they? Now, overlooking the fact that it's never actually explained how bodies buried 6 feet underground came into contact with the T-virus, but those aren't fresh bodies. And what did the Red Queen say?
Even in death, the human body still remains active. Hair and fingernails continue to grow. New cells are produced, and the brain itself holds a small electrical charge that takes months to dissipate. The T-virus provides a massive jolt both to cellular growth and to those trace electrical impulses. But quite simply, it reanimates the body.
The T-virus uses those trace electrical impulses to kickstart your body, as the Queen said. But with dead and rotting corpses, there is no trace electrical impulses. Hell, there's barely even a brain left. This is just an excuse to have the iconic moment of zombies coming out of the graves, and it just plain doesn't make any sense in the context of this film. They realise there's too many of them after getting in their prerequisite badass fight scene stuff done, and get out of there. Back at the Umbrella camp, they decide now is the time to activate the Nemesis program, which is the Nemesis creature from Resident Evil 3. And in the city, the mercs see a helicopter thinking it's their rescue, but it just drops some containers, which they find empty, but look like they held some pretty heavy ordnance. And then the merc who was bitten becomes a zombie and bites Carlos, just for some added drama, because apparently there needs to be one person per group who's bitten. Elsewhere at a convenience store, a sniper picks off zombies while drinking beer, and he decides to save LJ from a zombie, because it's fucking essential the comic relief survives. And inside, he meets the remaining members of STARS holed up in the store. But outside, the sniper spots something approaching, and it's Nemesis, who blows up the sniper, and the Umbrella guys program him to kill STARS members, as he uses his Gatling gun to kill everyone except for LJ. Thanks for that, Nemesis.
Stars.
Now in the game, Nemesis was sent in specifically to kill STARS members and Jill as a test and revenge for the events of the first game. Except here, there's really no reason for him to be here outside of giving the film a big bad beastie boss fight. And they have him kill STARS members because they had to find a way for him to say his catchphrase of STARS. Again, it's shoving things in from the game that really makes little sense, apart from, hey, this'll get arses in seats method of film writing. Alice and Jill's group are wandering the city and the payphones near them start ringing, until Alice relents and finally picks one up. Turns out it's Ashford who's willing to get them out of the city if they agree to save his daughter. They take refuge in a tramcar with Alice explaining what's going on, that Ashford is their only way out because at sunrise, Umbrella will be nuking the city to contain the infection.
Cover up is already prepared. Meltdown at the nuclear power plant. A tragic accident.
Ah yes, a meltdown at the nuclear power plant. That's the perfect cover-up for a nuclear explosion. Oh, one problem. A meltdown and an atom bomb are completely different things, and neither would ever be confused for the other. That's a fucking stupid cover-up. The group continues to move to the school where Ashford's daughter is, but then Alice's spidey sense tingles, and she feels something is near. And as Peyton goes on his own, he's gunned down by Nemesis. Alice tells everyone to run, and she faces off with him. And the Umbrella guys recognise that Alice and Nemesis are about to fight, because that's apparently the reason he's there. So the film's taking a more literal interpretation to the name Nemesis. It's the Nemesis program because they've been created to fight each other, instead of him being the Nemesis to Jill Valentine in the game, because he was never actually named Nemesis. So I guess he is there for a reason. I just wish it had anything whatsoever to do with the game. Alice shoots at Nemesis with him just batting her to the side, causing her to run from his Gatling gun. She jumps off a cop car just as Nemesis fires a rocket, giving us another slow-mo explosion to watch. and getting inside a building with Nemesis smashing down walls to get to her, she jumps down the garbage chute, breaking a finger in the process, and narrowly avoiding a missile blast, manages to get away. And then she resets her finger, letting us know about her advanced healing now. Jill, with the reporter, is trying to hotwire a car. She gets it running, but the zombie Peyton attacks, and Jill does what she said she would, and kills him. Back with the Mercs, Carlos is dressing his wound and Nikolai wonders why the helicopter didn't see them. But Carlos tells her how it is, that they're expendable and no more use to Umbrella. Then a mobile phone rings with Ashford asking for their help too. Also, if I remember correctly, in Resident Evil 3, which is where the mercenaries came from, Nikolai was the leader and was quite the evil bastard. So another consistent character there. And on their way to the school, Jill and the reporter find LJ wandering the streets and bring him along too. How does he continue to survive? Jill gets to the school with a camera making sure we get that there'll be more zombie dogs coming up. And inside the school, Jill, because she learned her skills from Scooby-Doo, says they should split up, and she forces the reporter to go off on her own, even when she says she's never fired a gun before. What a compassionate police officer. LJ on his own searches a classroom. Opening a door, he gets spooked by a skeleton. But then the zombie attacks, but Carlos takes it out and teams up with LJ. And the reporter searches a classroom on her own, finding a girl sitting alone. But turns out she's a zombie, and the rest of the horrible creatures, who are also zombies, show up and the reporter dies to zombie children. But at least she got it on camera. And yeah, I'm blaming Jill for that death. Yes, the reporter was useless and unable to handle herself in that situation, but Jill also knew that and sent her in anyway. What a bitch. And what makes it worse is Jill goes into the same room and finds the girl in there, taking the reporter's camera, which is just a big kick in the teeth to the reporter. She was in the right place, but she gets to be zombie chow, whereas Jill saves the girl. Jill and Ashford's daughter Angela get into the cafeteria and Angela warns Jill about the danger, but she's not afraid of zombies. However, Angela meant the dogs, which attack immediately, knocking Jill over, causing her to lose her gun. But it's Nikolai to save the day in badass style.
Stay.
However, another dog attacks Nikolai, causing Angela to run. He tells Jill to get her, as he's got the situation under control. That is until another dog appears and kills the guy pretty swiftly, destroying any kind of badass status the guy once had. Jill and Angela try to get out through the kitchen, but the dogs follow them in there. Jill tries reaching for a cleaver, but a zombie cook crawls out towards Jill, but she just silently snaps its neck, and reaching back for the knife, it's clear the dogs have found them anyway. But Jill decides that overkill is the way to go and starts turning on all the gas cookers, letting the room fill with gas. And running out, she tries to get a badass moment, throwing a pack of lit matches into the gas. But no, only Alice can be badass, as she throws a cigarette in there, covering Angela in a fire blanket. Because fuck you, Jill, apparently. And because Alice is the virus whisperer now, she knows immediately that Angela is infected with the T-virus, and looking at her arm, she's covered in marks from one of the virus syringes. And in her bag, Alice finds she's carrying vials of the antivirus. And Angela explains that the T-virus was made to help her walk again, but she needs constant doses of the antivirus to stop her from turning into some kind of monstrosity. And then Carlos arrives with LJ in the middle of their chat about the antivirus, so they can take care of that nasty bite of his. Which I think calls for a...
That's convenient.
Also, is it kind of weird how so much effort, death, ammunition and manpower has gone into saving this one girl when there's who knows how many surviving people left in the city that'll get blown up at dawn? Outside the school, Ashford calls them and explains that there is a helicopter in the city that they'll be able to commandeer. And after getting to speak to his daughter, he tells them to go to City Hall. And it's lucky he managed to give them that information, as the head umbrella guy finds him and cuts off his communication. They reach the helicopter and begin kicking all the guards' arses because they're there purely for decoration apparently. And Alice takes out a sniper ready to shoot Carlos, and then taking another cue from Mission Impossible, rappels down the building, beating up all the guards below. She clears the helicopter of guards, and inside, Alice realizes the helicopter is meant for Nemesis, who's also arrived. Alice tries to get the pilot to take off, but the lead Umbrella guy holds Angela hostage and everyone else at gunpoint outside the helicopter, making his claim of not being able to get anyone out of the city due to risk of infection even more a load of bollocks than when he first said it. Angela reunites with her father, and the lead Umbrella guy tells Nemesis to get rid of his guns, as he and Alice are gonna fight hand to hand to find out which is better. Alice refuses, saying she doesn't care if he kills any of them, so the guy just shoots Ashford, and Alice then agrees. Not much courage in her own convictions there. So they start fist fighting because people really want to see Nemesis fist fight. And Nemesis breaks off a piece of metal to use as a weapon, and the Umbrella guy gives Alice some batons to make the fight more fair. And then Alice impales Nemesis on the spike he created. And here's the stupid crap. Alice gets memories of Matt from the first film, who is actually Nemesis now. Because every fan, when they played Resident Evil 3, every single one of them, when they saw Nemesis killing people and being a scary enemy, all of them said, in unison, you know what would make him better? A tragic fucking backstory. Because he's not a scary inhuman monster unless you care about him. And to end this epic battle of Mortal Kombat...
Finish him.
But Alice refuses, and the guy tries to convince her she's better than Nemesis, and should go with him, saying that Nemesis is useless to him, which is a good idea to say that in front of him. Because then Nemesis becomes a fucking good guy, using his machine gun to kill the guards, allowing Alice to run off, and Carlos and Jill cut themselves free, taking out more of the guards. And the Umbrella guy gives the order for the nuke to be fired at the city, so we got a big ticking clock for our heroes. LJ has somehow managed to get into the pilot seat of the helicopter and punches the Umbrella guy. Some more helicopters show up, firing at Alice, giving her a slow-mo running from gunfire moment into more guards. She then recreates a scene from Resident Evil Code Veronica, dropping her gun but catching it as it falls, shooting the guards. The helicopters have Alice in their sights, but Nemesis just steps in to help, firing a rocket at the helicopter, taking them both out, with what's left landing on Nemesis, presumably killing him, and sending a piece of metal into Alice's head. Which, for one of the most iconic enemies in the Resident Evil series, killing off Nemesis, after he became a good guy no less, is a really crap use of the character. It's a great case for exchanging Nemesis for any kind of deformed monster, and it wouldn't change anything. He's really just there for brand recognition. The zombies break through the building's doors and make their way to the helipad, and Carlos helps Alice up and onto the helicopter, with the Umbrella guy being thrown off it. He shoots a few zombies before turning the gun on himself, but he's out of bullets, and Zombie Ashford gets the first serving. Wait, how did he get infected? He was shot. There's no indication he came into contact with the virus. Unless something happened there I'm not aware of, I think the movie just forgot how the virus worked again. And as the helicopter makes it out of the city, the bomb hits, causing it to crash, and a pipe dislodges from the wall, heading straight for Angela. But Alice throws herself in the way, and it stabs her in the chest, and then the helicopter crashes. Umbrella is quick to survey the crash site, with everyone gone except for Alice's body, which Jorah here takes back with them. Then the news hits of the explosion, with them at first blaming Umbrella, but it's quickly changed and Umbrella is heralded as a saviour.
Apparently the reactor at the nuclear power station went critical in the early hours,
making this the worst atomic energy disaster since the Russian Chernobyl incident in 1986.
Worst disaster since Chernobyl? Yeah, I should fucking think so. Chernobyl was a horrible thing that happened, but it wasn't a fucking nuclear bomb. Nuclear reactors can't create nuclear explosions, it's impossible. Chernobyl killed around 56 people to date. Eventually it will have killed 4,000. But to compare that to an entire city being wiped off the map is completely asinine, and further demonstrates that this script was written by an idiot. But wait, there's more, as we move to another Umbrella base 3 weeks later, and Alice is quite naked. We're starting to think we weren't going to get another one of those in this film. She's in a tank being overseen by Dr. Jorah here, and she's released from the tank very confused, not remembering much.
Look at me. Can you remember anything? You remember your name?
Yeah, she's so confused that all she keeps saying is...
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
But eventually she does remember everything and then proceeds to go mental, kicking the shit out of the scientists, being able to take taser shots without flinching. And she even makes the surveillance guy's brains melt, because she can do that now apparently. She gets outside with what seems like every guard in the place holding her at gunpoint, until Carlos and Jill show up, not raising any kind of suspicion with their fake IDs. And they take Alice with them.
Are you alright?
Why did they bring her along? And doesn't she need a constant dose of the antivirus? Where are they getting that from? She didn't really have a lot with her at the school. And because the film has to set up its increasingly shit sequels...
Program Alice activated.
What did they do to you?
So yeah, there's that to look forward to. So that was Resident Evil Apocalypse, although the series should really just be called the Alice Chronicles and be done with it. This film is far worse and a lot more stupid than the first one. It still has pretty much nothing to do with the games, but the film thinks that by shoving in characters from the series for no real reason, it'll somehow be more relevant. And even then, every character is sidelined for Alice, making it less a zombie survival film and more a gritty superhero film with zombies in it. And even then the zombies are superfluous. I keep mentioning how these films really aren't adapting much from the games. Well, next week, they start adapting Mad Max instead. Yeah, I honestly don't know what the hell. See you next time.